What's up, everybody? My name is Zach. I'm the high school pastor here at Park Valley Church. Welcome to the week 4 video of the Doubt It series. If you missed the other 3, you can still go back and watch those on our YouTube channel and get caught up. They're about, I think, a little bit less than 10 minutes each, so it won't take you very long at all to get caught back up. And then come ready for our discussion, middle school at 4 p.m. and high school at 7 p.m. We hope to see you there. Fun Zach fact is that I love an adventure. I love to go on an adventure and do something kind of crazy and weird, and it makes me feel good. I love to do it. But usually with every adventure comes a struggle or a hardship of some point, right? So one time, me and my homie, who goes by the name of Anthony Cuccarini, is very near and dear to my heart. We went to go pick up another friend of ours by the name Scott Minter, also very near and dear to my heart. These guys were both in my wedding, along with Will Lanman. Holla back. Anyway, so we were picking up Scott from the Richmond airport. And so before we went, we didn't have a smartphone that had GPS on it. In fact, I don't think that existed yet. You had to buy a separate thing. I think one of the popular ones were called Thompson. So you had to buy a separate thing that mounted on your dashboard that could help you with GPS. So we didn't have that. We didn't have money to buy a GPS. So what we did is we went onto the interwebs or the internets or the Wikipedia, whatever it's called. We went on it. And so we looked up MapQuest, was a company that worked a lot like Google Maps, where you could search for an address and it would give you directions that you could print off to that place. And so we printed off the directions, and the next day we start our trip. We're in the car, and we didn't even have a radio in the car. The radio was broken, and I had this little iPod, and it was a new feature where you could play the music via the speaker on the iPod that hadn't been put out yet. And so we were doing that on the iPod. That's all we had. And we're making our way down to Richmond, and we're on 95. We're driving. So far, so good. Nothing crazy has happened. We're following the directions. Everything's going well. And then something happens. We see a big sign that says Richmond Airport, next exit. But the problem was our directions had us going off a different exit 4 or 5 miles down the road. And so we had to make this decision. Do we exit now with the big Richmond Airport sign, or do we keep following the MapQuest directions? And this exit was coming fast. Like, we had a matter of seconds to make this decision. And so I was driving, and I just decided I'm following MapQuest. It's probably got a different way that knows a little bit better than what this big Richmond Airport sign says. And so we follow it, and needless to say, we ended up at a funeral home and not an airport, and we had to double back and find our way back to that exit and get on it before we got to the Richmond airport. But before you get all judgy on me, before you bring your judgment, like, Zach, you should have just followed the big old sign. Look, you don't know the future, all right? You can't predict the future, all right? Guess what I'm going to say next? The Nationals are still the World Series champions. Yeah, you didn't know I was going to say that. You don't have ESPN. I think it's called ESP. Anyway, you don't have that. All joking aside, I think we all question where God is taking us sometimes. Just like I questioned MapQuest or the big giant Richmond Airport sign. We all question where God is leading us. And I know I've had those moments in my life where I prayed that, God, man, if you can just show me a snapshot of the future, that would be fantastic. But the reason why I wanted that snapshot is because I was not confident in where I was currently going. You know, I don't think that is out of the ordinary. I don't think that it's a sin to question God. I still trusted God when I prayed for that. I still prayed for His will to be done in my life. I just wasn't very confident. But I think the truth is that godly people can help us with our questions. When we're experiencing confusion, uncertainty, or fear, it's easy to question what we were supposed to do next. And it's easy to question why God isn't making our path clear. But I think that God will put godly people in our lives to help us out in those moments that we can seek advice from. And so I want to look at the book of Exodus, chapter 18, verses 13 through 24. A little bit longer scripture than what we normally look at. But what I think is cool about this story is it's Moses, and Moses is basically helping his people decide what is godly and what is not godly. He's helping decide disputes, but he's the only one doing it. And there's a man in there, Jethro, who is Moses' father-in-law. And so let's dive in and look at this interaction. Exodus chapter 18, verses 13 through 24. The next day, Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, What is this that you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge, while all these people stand around you from morning till evening? Moses answered him, Because people come to me to seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it is brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and instructions. Moses' father-in-law replied, What you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. Teach them his decrees and instructions, and show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Have them serve as judges for the people at all times, but have them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide themselves. That will make your load lighter because they will share it with you. If you do this, and God so commands, you will be able to stand the strain, and all the people will go home satisfied. Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. Moses' father-in-law gives him some advice, and Moses takes it. That's what happens. Moses was on track, and he was trying to do good for everybody, but he was on track to burning out and just exhausting himself and exhausting everybody around him. And so Moses' father-in-law says, hey, you should divide up the work, right? You should appoint representatives, good representatives that represent God well, and have them do a lot of this work for you, and they can bring more difficult things to you, lightening the load for him and everyone else. And so Moses takes that advice, and I think we can do that same thing. I think we even have a little bit more of an advantage that we can seek out advice. We don't have to wait for someone to come and see something that we can do better and tell us. We can go ask people those things. When it comes to our student ministry worship team, I am not the best person to lead that team, right? But I have two amazing people, Matt Patty and Miranda Dixon, who give me advice on everything that we should do. And I typically default to them because they know more about me in that scenario. While I'm still in charge of the student ministry band, they help me make every single decision that the band has to do, right? Because they know more than me in that topic. So it would be foolish of me not to seek that wisdom from them. But it would be wise for me to get that wisdom to help make our band as good as it can possibly be. And I think we can do that same thing. And the reality is social distancing doesn't stop us from doing that, right? We can go seek people out. We can call people. We can text people. We can be on the phone. And to really make this easy for you, in the description of this video, I'm going to put the entire student ministry staff's contact information that you guys can call us. You can text us, and we would love to talk with questions or just have a fun conversation with you if you're too bored. But I think the reality is that we do not need to be afraid of our questions. We need to seek out godly people to help us with those questions. When we have doubt in our life, we need to seek out godly people to help us with that doubt. And so what I want you guys to remember is kind of everything that we've talked through this series. You know, number one, you are not alone in your questions. Number two, God doesn't shame you for your questions. Number three, our questions don't always get answered. And number four, godly people can help you with your questions.